Hey, George, ready for school?
Yep. Dad, can I ask you a question?
Of course.
Mr. Wilson has assigned us a paper on the global warming crisis in our sociology class, and I can't believe what I'm reading.
Like what?
Well, in the midst of obvious evidence, people denying that global warming was even real. How could they have been so stupid?
They weren't stupid. They were afraid.
But it was so obvious. Oceans were rising, temperatures were breaking records, unprecedented levels of flooding and droughts. How could they not have seen what was going on?
Well, many people did, and the denial started to change. For many, they knew something was going on, but the Earth had warmed up at other periods in history, so that was probably what they thought was happening now.
But even in our science class, we understand that sufficient CO2 emissions come from the burning of fossil fuels. Couldn't they connect the dots?
Over time, people did. But you have to remember, at some level, everyone was afraid. It's not just that global warming was happening, it was the changes that we'd have to embrace that were about to occur.
What do you mean?
Well, for example, take the Industrial Revolution and the oil and coal that drove that revolution. That brought on an era of unprecedented prosperity that went on for over 150 years. Many people believed that the changes that we were being asked to make would take us back to the Dark Ages. Very few were willing to take that risk on what they saw as just another doomsday prophecy for our planet.
So, what caused things to change?
Well, as you pointed out, the climate change really had some clear, undeniable impact. It was really hard for people to deny what was happening and the changes that were occurring all over the world.
And yet, there's so much resistance. Why did the world leaders wait so long to do something?
Yes, it's important to understand that world leaders can only do what the people are willing to support. It takes a clear crisis to make that happen.
Although things aren't perfect now, changes have been made. Virtually no one burns coals or oil these days. Mrs. Wilson said that a major turning point came about in December of 2015 with a climate change conference held in Paris.
Yes, I think she's right. The conference in Paris was inspirational. Back here in Oregon, various environmental groups got together with major utilities and came up with a plan to eliminate coal as a fuel source and to increase renewable energy. That was unprecedented cooperation for the time.
What about Lake Oswego? What difference did it make here?
Well, I was only 10 at the time, but I do remember my father and others wondering, would our community really take on this climate change issue? After all, we're a prosperous upscale community, and many people here had benefited from the way things had been before.
Something must have happened because all of a sudden we became like all the other communities around us. We're all driving electric cars and charging stations were everywhere. What motivated us to change?
Well, that's a hard question to answer exactly, but I think at some level, virtually everyone wants to do the right thing. And it seems that at some point that came into play. Also, we're fortunate to live in a community that really values education. Your high school is one of the best in the country. Consequently, Lake Oswego attracts people that are highly educated with leadership skills. Leadership for work in their communities, in their businesses, and in government. So the same people that brought about change here in Lake Oswego became advocates in their business and in other organizations. And their impact and influence was felt way beyond just our local community.
Even as a kid, I would hear how Oregon was an example of a lot of issues like this, but I didn't know LO was. Instead, at football games and things like that, other kids would tell us that people from LO were rich and stuck up. But when I started this paper, I never thought that our community would be such an inspiration to others.
Well, our community is far from perfect, but sometimes the attributes that others criticize are the strengths that you need to get the difficult things done. I think it'd be interesting for you to learn more about the sustainability leaders in our community and what they did. Well, I think that's a really long answer to your question, Do you have enough to get going on your assignment now?
I do, Dad. Thanks.